1. So this situation lasted my entire middle school career, 6th to 8th grade. I was battling my fair share of mental health issues back then and was very antisocial. I wasn't popular and would really try to make friends with anyone who talked to me. I was and have been a pretty geeky, I hate using that word, girl because of my interest in anime and gaming. I wasn't a full-on weeb, and if you didn't know me personally, you probably wouldn't suspect a thing. But I hung around with groups who had similar interests as me. So in comes Aries. Aries is a guy who also shares my interests and is a typical band kid. He openly supported communism and the Nazi regime, which makes absolutely no sense because his mom was black. He spoke in a Ben Shapiro-esque voice and had the typical neckbeard odor. I met him in my 6th grade US history class when we were seated together. We quickly became friends because of our shared interests. I brushed all the warning signs under the rug because I was just happy to have a friend. He started to associate with my friend group and everything was going smoothly. Towards the end of 6th grade, he confessed to me that he liked me. I didn't have the heart to outwardly reject him in fear of losing my friendship, so I just told him that I wasn't looking to date anyone at the moment. Big fucking mistake. He then proceeded to ask for nudes in exchange for a pizza. I declined and he kept harassing me for nudes. I should have cut him off then, but I decided that the whole situation wasn't going to be the last straw. Entering 7th grade, everything just started to get worse. He loved to flaunt the fact that he had a body pillow of a lolly and started to smell even worse. Whenever I would wear shorts to school, he told me that I looked like a slut and that I should cover up. The shorts were literally to my knees. One day I decided to wear my hair down to school for the first time. My hair is really thick and tends to get frizzy to the humidity here. But I decided to straighten it up and actually try a bit that day. I immediately get told by him in the morning that my hair looked awful and you should put it back up. I wasn't even dating this kid, he was just a shithead. His comments were a real blow to my confidence, so I decided to just put my hair back up for the rest of the day. On Valentine's Day, he bought me flowers and chocolates. I appreciated the sentiment, but everyone teased me for it. He gave me flowers the next year too, after I showed disinterest in him. 8th grade was when everything really went to shit. I decided that I wanted to dress basic and attempt to socialize with new people. This was when the whole VSCO girl getup was popular, so I chose that aesthetic and ran with it. I went the whole 9 yards. I even bought a hydro flask. I still use it to this day. One day we were walking back from lunch. He unzips my backpack and throws my hydro flask on the concrete. This leaves a very obvious dent, and I'm livid. I had used my own money to buy that very expensive water bottle, and was very fed up with him at this point. After that, I decided to cut him out of my life. He continued to attempt to speak with me and followed me around, but like, whatever. I asked him to just stop associating himself with me, but he refused. Once I stopped giving him the attention he wanted, he started hanging out with my other friend, Elvira. Elvira was friends with him prior to the incident and didn't cut him off as a friend. He confessed his love to her. She rejected him. After this, he threatened to kill her and rape her dead body. Her parents were very mad at this and reported him to the school. I was brought in to give my dirt to the school counselor, so I did. He was suspended for 3 or 4 days, I really forgot. A few weeks later, he confessed his love to a different girl. None of us knew her personally, but she rejected him. He lied to everybody about dating her and continues to fake date her to this day. After the whole debacle, he tried to talk to me at the dreaded school dance, but I just ignored him. He succeeded in spreading some short-lived rumors about me and had all my other neckbeard friends cut me off. A few more notable incidents were when we were forced into mandatory clubs in the school, and were both in the same anime club. Nothing came of it, but he did call me a bitch a couple of times and shot me dirty looks. 2. When I was 16, my high school did this thing called NCS, National Citizen Service. in which you paid about £50 to go to Scotland for a week and stay in a university dorm for another week. Me and my friends were all going to sign up for the same dates so we wouldn't be alone. I ended up going completely alone, surrounded by strangers, as my best friend couldn't go with me due to family issues, and the rest of my friends just changed their minds. So it was the first day, just as we were meeting everyone before getting on the coach for 7 hours, up to Edinburgh, and a guy named Lachlan came up to me and complimented me on my Rick and Morty shirt. Lachlan definitely had a neckbeard, but he wasn't overweight, was quite short, and didn't smell of rank BO like your typical neckbeard. At first I thought he was the best. We had the same humor, and I agreed to sit next to him on the coach journey. Everything was fine at first, until he started talking about the movie Full Metal Jacket. Now don't get me wrong, I enjoy this film, but the way he'd talk about it was as if it was hilarious, and he even got a little mad at me when I said I didn't think it was the best movie I'd ever seen. We quickly moved on to talking about music, and I mentioned one of my favorite bands, 21 Pilots, to which he rolled his eyes and scoffed, saying, so you're one of those girls?" Confused by this, I asked him what he meant by one of those girls, and he didn't answer, just asked me if I was religious. I said no, and he sighed with relief, and gave a very overdramatic sigh. Finding this weird, I just put my headphones in and ignored him till we got to the hostel. Over the last few days, I distanced myself from him, as he would ask me extremely personal questions about my sexuality, which I hadn't even brought up to him at all. This was hard, as he would always butt into my conversations and follow me even though I made it obvious I wasn't interested in being his friend at all. I made a lot more friends there, including a girl, Calliope. Calliope was a Catholic, but was extremely kind and didn't care when I told her I was bi. We even had an in-depth discussion about it. Lachlan found out she was religious and would make extremely insensitive comments about her religion, saying how she was stupid and had to be a horrible person. One time we were just waiting in line for food, and he turned to me and Calliope, who were talking about what prayer she says before food, and he turned around and suggested she was mentally disabled. Calliope just looked at me, and that was it for me. I told him if he didn't have anything nice to say or respectful, he should just shut up. He called me a thought, and told me I would never get a man like him with an attitude like that. I told him good. There were multiple more instances involving him, but here are the ones that stand out. Told our group he should be the leader as he is the alpha. Asked me for my Instagram literally every day. Told Calliope she should kill me because I was bisexual and it was her religion. Called all the girls thoughts, and telling this one extremely attractive girl who I was talking to that she was a Barbie doll full of plastic. When I finally got home, he messaged me on Snapchat, the social media our stat group had to conversate on, and asked me if I missed him with a very unattractive shot of his crotch. Blocked him immediately and didn't go back for week 2. He also didn't shower the whole week, even though we were hiking and rock climbing every day. 3. Well, to start off, let's talk about the neckbeard. He isn't really a typical neckbeard, given that he is very tall and lean, but still has the typical long-ass beard and really long hair. Loves anime and never talks to anyone, like ever. Very little social skills, and spends most of the time reading manga. Always wearing a band t-shirt and doesn't look like he showers much. So this story takes place mostly in my college, and I know him since I was a freshman in 2016, but I've never really talked to him. Maybe exchanged like 5 words, but that's it. So about August of 2016, I've known him for 6 months. Here in Brazil, the school year starts in February. I was polite towards him, but really I don't know him. So I go to our college library. My friend is waiting for me in the entrance, and I go to pick a book for one of our classes. So here I am, looking for biochemistry books, and this guy shows up, looks at me and offers me gum. I say no thanks, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and drops a note on top of the book I was holding and just runs off. At this point, I'm just confused. So I open the note and it says something like, "Oh, I really like you, and I feel like you like me too. Maybe you want to go out sometime?" Honestly, at this point, I just feel sorry for the guy. I'm just gonna have to let him know I'm not interested. So a few days after, this guy messages me on my cell phone. He has my number because the whole class is in a WhatsApp group. He wants to meet me so we can talk, and I say, man, if it's because of the note, I don't have any interest, sorry. Best of luck, though. He accepts it, and I think it's the end of it, but sadly, it was just the beginning. A few months later, we're all having class, and my friend goes to fill up her water bottle, and this guy comes up to her saying that he needed to talk to her after class. She said he was really red and trembling, so she was a little concerned. After class, she decided not to go, mostly because she didn't want to lead him on or anything. So, okay, we all head home. I'm almost reaching home, and this same friend starts calling me. She's desperate. She's like, "Go check your WhatsApp, it's weird." So I check it. And I've been added to a group that's comprised of me, my friend, Neckbeard, and 2 other numbers that we don't know who they are. So the Neckbeard is really desperately texting in this group, saying the world was going to end, we were the only people that could save it, and that he knew it was because he was a medium, and the prophecy of Chico Xavier, a popular medium here in Brazil, of the end of the world in 2019 was true. He wanted to meet in a popular college bar so we could go and save the world. At this point, I'm just tired of that bull. I said, "I'm sorry, man. I'd rather take my chances and pay another bus ticket to go back there." He soon deletes the group and stops talking. My friend also contacted one of the unknown numbers to see if it could explain what was going on, and thankfully it was his cousin. She said he just had some mental problems and needed treatment, but his parents were religious and took him to the church instead. We are very worried that he is going to do something stupid, so the cousin says she's going to check on him at home, and we say we're going to check on him the next day at college. But here's the problem. He doesn't show up for class the next day, or the other. In fact, he just disappeared for 3 months. We don't really know what's going on. My friend is blaming herself at this point. And we are just confused about all that happened. When he shows up, we ask him what happened. He's dismissive, so we don't press him too much. And I think that's the end of it. Hopefully he stays on his meds, and we can all still be in the same class. But of course that's not what happened. 2017 was a pretty uneventful year in that front. I didn't have any classes with him anymore and barely saw him. But in 2018, that's when shit hit the fan, at least for me. By the middle of the year, I managed to get myself pneumonia. So I was in pretty rough shape. I was in class and I was just miserable, fever, coughing and whatnot. I was planning to go to the ER after class. The Neckbeard was not enrolled in this class, but a friend of his was. Later in the day, I received a message from him hoping I was okay, and that he wrote a sonnet for me and was going to deliver it to me via my friend, the same one from before. I never replied to that message. It was just generally creepy. A day later, my friend just texts me that she has the sonnet that he gave it to her, and asks if I want it or what. I say that I don't want it and she can do whatever to it. I end up reading it some days later and it mentions some pretty dark stuff, so I was absolutely creeped out by it. A few months later, completely out of the blue, this guy again messages me, just saying, "Hey, I need to know if you hate me." So I try to tell him that no, I don't hate him or anything. He asks then if we could be friends, and I just try to maneuver myself into saying something that doesn't lead him into another breakdown, but I still say no. I have no interest in being his friend. He keeps insisting, asking why not and all that. By this point, I'm texting my friend, asking what I should do. She, being the marvelous human being that she is, goes to talk to him, asks him if everything is all right, and to say that I was getting a little creeped out. She was more polite than that, but those are the highlights. He is very affirmative that I like him. By the way I look at him in class, but let's be honest, I was just bored in class. She is of course sending me screenshots all the time, and I'm thoroughly creeped out. He won't admit that I don't have any interest in him and that he should let go. He keeps saying that we are meant to be, she just doesn't know it, etc. I'm just freaking out at this point. I'm worried he will just follow me or something. I make sure I'm never alone with him, ever. Of course, he comes with another poem that I just throw in the bin. To be honest, I'm kind of afraid of him to this day. There's a few other stories to tell about him, but I feel are not completely essential to this plot, so I've left them out. I'm going to graduate at the end of the year, maybe next year, depending on how it goes with the pandemic. And he is graduating with me. More stuff could still happen, I don't know. I've never let the college know about this, mostly because there isn't much they can do. We simply don't have the structure to deal with this, sadly. 4. For context, last year I went to a folk high school. A folk high school is a Scandinavian form of school you can take after high school. You usually don't get any qualification, but usually people go to figure themselves out and students are of different ages. At my school, between 18 and 40. People can learn a skill like playing an instrument, learning a language, cooking, etc., and build up their social skills. I attended one in Denmark where you could learn about martial arts and Japanese culture. So primo breeding grounds for weebs and neckbeards. Today I'll be telling you about one of the neckbeardy students. Please note that he did have a lot of mental disorders, to the extent that the school didn't have the capacity to have him back for a second semester. So we were only about 50-ish students this semester, so everyone got to know each other quickly. I've never been a popular person by any means, but here I never struggle to sit with people or find someone to hang out with. A few days in, I noticed this guy we'll call Bob. Bob always sat alone, about 3 empty tables behind everyone else. He had very badly cut shoulder-length hair, weird stubble, and wore his glasses at the edge of his nose, which looked comical as he would purse his lips most of the time. I've been bullied and alone a lot, so I get that it sucks. So I thought I'd try to include this guy. At a meal, I walk over to him and ask to sit down. One of the staff members looks over at me and nods approvingly. He nods and moves his headset so it's only covering one ear, while his other, he always wore 2, headset was around his neck. Once we talked a bit, I noticed his hands were really red up until his wrist, which I assume means he washes his hands too much, and that he smelled. He also never really touched his food, but would use napkins to wrap his food, then hold the napkin to eat it. I assumed he had OCD or was a germaphobe. When I asked about the redness, he didn't reply. Anyway, we talked a bit. I got to know his name, that he liked Japanese, and that he was a fellow autist. Once I mentioned that I was also autistic. He seemed skeptical and said, "You don't look autistic. What kind of autistic are you?" Kind of ignoring it and not knowing what to reply, I tried to change the subject. But I was cut off by a million compliments and questions about my hair. Around this time I was done eating and told him I had other things to do. I continued being pleasant with him, saying hi and inviting him to group activities I was going to. This led to him being extremely clingy. When I pass by people I know, I usually say hi. When I did the same to him, he took this as an invitation to follow me around. Once I was going to the lockers to change to go swimming, I passed him and said hi. He immediately followed me and bombarded me with questions, and I politely answered. He followed me all the way to the girls' locker room, where I had to stop and tell him, "This is the girls' locker room, you can't go in here." He gave me a blank look before disappearing. As we were still in the first week, we had a bunch of group activities to do to learn about the different subjects. Bob, whenever he was in the same group as me, he would try to pick me as his partner, all the time. In the health and fitness intro class, I was late and so was Bob, so yay, lucky me. The intro class included a lot of bodyweight partner exercises. This meant I had to touch Bob, who smelled. Oh well, I ignored it and did the exercises to the best of my abilities. At some point, during a mobility exercise, we had to hold hands. His hands were extremely sweaty, and he apologized for this. I acknowledged that people can't help being sweaty or having sweaty hands, so I told him, "Don't worry, you can't help it." This led him to follow me around more. At this school, we were divided up into 6 groups. Each group had a morning meeting once per week, did a few activities together, and had chores together. Each month the chores would rotate, with the exception of dishes, which changed every 2 days. He was not in my group. My group had kitchen duty, dishes, and cleaning of the dining hall. His group was cleaning one of the bathrooms. I was cleaning, and he walks over and asks if I need help. I told him that was kind, but he should go to find his group and ask to help them. He tells me he doesn't like his group and that he doesn't want to do chores. Me, wanting to be alone and just listen to my music while I clean, told him I was fine, but that he should talk to his group teacher if he had a problem with his group. He kept showing up for my chores and always asked to help. He kept being really weird and like a leech. Examples. He continued to follow me around when he saw me. He would always mention my hair, compliment my hair, ask about my hair, but to a weird extent. Whenever he joined Werewolf, a game my friends and I played a lot, he would always sit next to me and always use his ability on me. He rarely joined group activities, but when he did, I was there, and he would try to talk to me instead of joining. This was only for a week or two. I sat with him once a meal every 2 or 3 days, as I felt bad that he was alone all the time, but at the same time I wasn't a huge fan. He would always speak of himself as superior and smarter. He tried multiple times correcting the Japanese teacher in Japanese class, although he had no clue what he was on about. This would result in him sitting in a corner muttering to himself. The next week his group had kitchen duty, but he never showed, so his group teacher asked anyone to fill in. No one volunteered, so I did, as I knew he hated loud noises like the dishwasher, hence the 2 sets of headphones. He continued to follow me after this, even when I told him to stop, so I ended up cutting all interaction with him. He still followed me around for a bit. A few weeks went by, and all I saw of Bob was him walking around with his iPad and muttering to himself. One evening I was hanging out with a few people when one of my friends, Melissa, walks down the stairs and informs us that she thinks someone is having sex in the bathroom. The next day a few more people walked downstairs and confirmed they heard moaning. This poor guy had to go all the way downstairs to use the bathroom. Days go by without anyone knowing who was involved with the bathroom incident. That was until one fateful Japanese class. A classmate of mine, Fred, had to go pee. He left the class and came back 2 minutes later, looking a shade paler, and mentioned something about, "He's doing it again," to the teacher. My curiosity was more than piqued. I didn't get the chance to know about what happened until we were hanging out as a group. Fred and I weren't close, so luckily someone else asked. Apparently Bob was found masturbating naked on the bathroom floor in a toilet stall. And this wasn't the first time. What made the situation weirder was that while most people had roommates, Bob did not, meaning he could do whatever he wanted there. But he chose to masturbate naked in toilet stalls the whole semester. I kinda upped my avoiding of him more after finding out, and never asked him about it. He didn't really get along with most people and was mostly alone. This was until the school went on a Japan trip. Bob in Japan is a whole different and weird thing in itself. 5. For starters, this is going to be a story about my experience being a neckbeard. This all took place through my high school years, and expanded up until late 2018. I was, and maybe, still considered a neckbeard of some traits, but have improved dramatically through the years. I was in high school, a total mess. I was 300 pounds of pure blubber, and was a self-identified goth. Back then I hated everyone and thought I was superior to others, even though I realize now that back then I was severely damaged. I wore black every day, from black to grey jeans, black hoodie, black shirt, black combat boots. I always had a chain wallet, as I thought back then it made me stick out. While I did try to keep some decency by showering, would shave and trim on the daily, try to do some kind of self-maintenance, my body was severely out of shape, and therefore I had a bad body odor that not even deodorant could tackle. I was also into a lot of things back then. Heavy metal, go figure, furries, anime, My Little Pony, and anything that had to do with violence and horror. I had a lot of problems growing up, some from family and some were from myself, but all through it, I thought the world back then had it out for me, for something I don't understand. I was lonely, misunderstood, and overall a complete stubborn weakling. Bullying was a big issue where we lived in a very small town, and I was a prime target for anyone who wanted to push me over and insult me, which made me more bitter against others. Then again, this was high school. I don't want to go on and on about it, but this was just to give basic information and a description of who I was. Throughout my high school years, I never did act out. As a matter of fact, I tried to hide away from others, thinking I was surviving a hellhole, waiting to be released and make a big shot of myself. Though that never came to light, I am somewhat glad I never did anything that would put me on someone's radar. Yes, I did try to intentionally bump into the occasional cute girl that came my way, but never outright stalked someone. But as I said before, this was high school. I graduated and tried to make my own way into this world, but never moved out of my parents' house. I got a job in retail and pretty much told myself that this was my forever home job. But during my time in retail, I did open up a bit more. I no longer saw people as inferior, but more or less tolerable. I interacted with a lot more people, and this promptly got me into something I never thought I would like: LARPing. Now, during this time, I had built up some savings, worked hard, and tried my best to please others. This lasted for a year until I met a cute girl named Stacy. She was friends with a couple of co-workers already, and started her job with us overnight workers. My God, was she stunning. She had a bit of a curve to her body, beautiful dyed blue hair, glasses, and an overall bubbly look. I'd fallen hard for her, but during that time she was chatting up another guy, Toby. Toby wasn't much of a man, to be honest. He was over 6 feet, really skinny, had long hair, and was what some would call a beta male. I didn't care, he was my best friend. However, Stacy decided to one day out of the blue start talking to me. We chatted for a while, and after a couple of days we started to hang out. However, I didn't realize that her and Toby were starting to date, and only found out when Toby started to stare daggers at me, and coworkers were telling me he didn't want me hanging out with his girl. Still, the little goth punk that I was didn't care what he said. I decided, the fuck is his scrawny little white ass gonna do to me? We still hung out. However, this all came to a stop one day when Stacy no longer wanted to hang out anymore. I tried asking why, but she chalked it up to her boyfriend not wanting her to be around me anymore. I was hurt from this, but I figured, whatever, and went on my way. This, however, expanded when, one day, she started accusing me of rape allegations and gross sexual misconduct. I was honestly pissed and decided this wasn't a thing for me to pursue, until one of my coworkers pulled me aside and told me he was given $40 to beat the shit out of me. He didn't want to, though, since he knew me and knew I wasn't the type to go fondle another girl without consent. Now I was pissed. To make a long story short, we both went to management about this and made a report. Toby and Stacy quit to go pursue better jobs, and after the whole thing was over, I came to the conclusion I was played. The redemption arc. It was the end of October when this all ended. I was hurt, and now felt more alone than ever. Something inside of me snapped that day, and I decided to actually do something this time. I decided to start lifting weights. The mentality I had at the time was I wanted to become something better than those two, and make them jealous of the man I was going to become. I found a gym, got a membership for a year, and started training every day for a year. Nothing really happened during that span, but I did falter sometimes for a couple of months. Skip over to 2018. I'm now 215 pounds, still somewhat conceited and a goth. I left a lot of things I thought I liked behind, but I'm still very much into anime and furries, and LARPing. Still wore black all the time, but now had a better variety of clothing, and no longer wore sweaters every day. And I made a lot of mental improvements during this time. Mostly why I was a neckbeard was because I felt I had no purpose. I wanted to have a relationship and have a life of my own, but I felt I had nothing to my name, and maybe if I'd shown attention to a person who was interested, they would consider me a comparable partner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It was around this time I got a text from Stacy. She wanted to talk to me again. She informed me she was married to Toby and they were having issues. This was, in other words, "I'm looking for the door and you're my backup." I didn't know what to feel at the time, but I did, however, develop a backbone. I don't remember the exact words when I said it, but it did go something like this. "I see. So you think you can just come back into my life out of nowhere when I've got my shit together, and think you can leech off of me because your oh-so-loving husband isn't good enough for you anymore, when back then you said some unforgiving shit that toyed with me for months." I honestly, at the time, thought to say fuck you to your face, but now I'm saying thank you, because you were the final push to send me over and get my life sorted out. Now that I'm doing a lot better for myself, you think I would just accept you back like that? Maybe someone else back then, yeah, but not anymore. I never want to get involved with you or him ever again, and I'm honestly insulted that you think of me as some kind of cushion for when things get rough. Do yourself a favor, go find someone who gives a fuck about you, because I clearly don't. I come to find out later they've both been running from job to job trying to find something they can do to make as much money as possible with minimal input. Toby did a complete 180 and basically destroyed his life. Overweight, neon green hair dye, and over-controlling. No wonder she decided to seek me out again. But during my year of redemption, I no longer wanted an easy life. I found a lot of traits I felt more rewarding. I worked hard, got my first car, 2016 Dodge Challenger, and I was looking for better things in life. I reformed myself and focused on becoming a more labor-driven person, and became something I thought I'd never be. Now skip ahead to 2019-2020. I am now 180 pounds, 5'11". I left my job in retail, worked a couple of crappy jobs, but now landed a factory that pays well, and have been with for the past 7 months. I'm now more considered a punk, still into heavy metal and anime, but now have an outgoing personality. I had a couple of relationships during the year, some broke me, some made me stronger, but now I'm living a better life. Still single, and soon I'll be turning 22 in July. Life has been good, and I still try my hardest every day in spite of my old self. I still live with my parents, but I carry my own weight in bills and help out as much as possible. Now for the real meat of the story. Neckbeard Prime versus ex-Neckbeard. It was around April of this year. Some of the restrictions have lifted in my state and I was able to go to the gym again. I never went to the gym during the day because I had social issues, but I continued to go for my self-gains. Now I should clarify, back then I dropped a ton of weight, and I've developed a curvature figure. While my body now started to have muscle here and there, I did have more definition to my rear and thighs. And at the same time I started developing a gender crisis. I started waxing my legs and body hair, moisturizing my skin, and trimmed my long hair, shaving the side of my head, and adding highlights. I didn't really look like a woman, but from the back, and if I decided to be a bit of an ass, I can pull off a feminine look easily. Top off that my voice can go from deep to softly sweet if I wanted to. So, I'm at the gym one day doing squats. I was going for a new max squat when all of a sudden, I saw 3 big bear men walk behind me. I was staring at the mirror when I saw them looking at me with disgusting grins on their face. I didn't think anything of it, and concentrated on my lift when one of the guys came over just watching. While he had all the same kind of look, this beefcake was something else. For starters, he was huge. Like really huge, as in he never walked a day in his lift. His body had an abnormal thick coat of hair from his arms to his chest to his legs. How do I know? Because he was wearing a skin-tight tank and worn-out baseball shorts that didn't compare to his facial features. The beard on his neck was somewhat trimmed and looked to be groomed, but I could have sworn I saw bits of bacon in it. His teeth were yellow and orange, as if he got done eating a bag of Cheetos, and he wore an old-style grandpa hat. While granted no fedora on any of them, they all wore old grandpa hats, which now I have to repress. My brother has one, and he actually looks good in it. But the biggest feature of these absolute units of whales was the smell. I would honestly bathe in a septic tank, rather than have to bear the scent of these guys. So here was one of the stooges looking at me with a Grinch smile and a shaker bottle in hand. I assumed he was the leader of the group, so for the rest of the story I will name him Neckbeard Prime.
You lift a lot of weights for a girl, huh? And might I say, you look really good doing it.
Thanks, but I'm a guy, actually. Side note, I forgot to mention I tend to wear skinny joggers, but today I was wearing compressed pants and a tank that slightly exposes my waist. So it was easy to mistake me for a girl from behind.
Oh, but you look like a girl, so you must be a trap.
No, I don't know what I am at the moment, so I just dress how I feel.
I see now. Well, maybe I can accompany you and we can find out what you really are.
Yeah, no thanks. I don't know you, and frankly, I don't want to be around someone who's going to objectify me like that.
There's no need for that. I can show you what a real man is, and you'll see how much I can spoil you.
You can barely take care of yourself, let alone anyone else. How do you think you're going to take care of me? Look, man, just do yourself a favor and leave me alone, okay? I don't want anything from you. And judging from your mannerisms, I want nothing to do with you. At this time, his buddies egged him on to go with them, as he walked away, mumbling something under his breath. For the rest of the time, they would get on the elliptical and stare at all the girls and me getting the workout on. But whenever I decided to move, Neckbeard Prime would move around with me. I go to the front to do curls, he is behind me watching. I go to the treadmills, he gets on the row behind me. This all boiled to the point where I went to the massage hydro beds. He crept up, watching me relax. I stared at him, fire in my eyes, as he dodged the corner. I figured I needed a longer break, so going out to my car, I sat on the hood, eating my pre-packed lunch, cooling off in the windy summer heat. Neckbeard Prime then approached me again, and this was the conversation after.
I want to apologize for my actions earlier. I didn't mean to offend you. Nice car. What model is it?
Oh, are you apologizing for the conversation earlier, or you're following me? Also, it's a 2016 Model V8 Hemi.
I was trying to work out, Gotta get them gains and swole, am I right?
He then noticed my Crusader helm and foam swords in my car. I carry my LARP equipment because my friends would do drive-by fights, and we must fight if met.
Oh wow, you're a Crusader too? You do LARPing?
Yeah, but no Crusader. I just like it because it's cool.
Well, I usually like Spartans from the BC times during the Peloponnesian Wars.
Okay, cool. I have a Spartan helm in my house, but I'm still painting it.
Well, lucky for you, I keep mine in my car at all times.
He points to the car behind me, an old grey Honda Civic with a bunch of stickers on the sides. At this time, I felt I needed to work on my upper body, so I started to pack up and go inside. Well, thank you for at least giving me a somewhat apology, but I need to go inside and finish up.
Wait!
He grabs my wrist, trying to hold me back. May as well cut it off, it was so damn greasy.
Maybe we could work out together, and maybe hang out afterwards? Maybe dinner tonight?
No, I need to work on myself alone, and I don't know you, so dinner is a no-go, sorry. I pull back and begin walking again when all of a sudden, I felt a great pull on my back pants. This asshat was trying to get my attention by holding back my pants. I pulled away hard and stomped inside, feeling fire in my gut, which at the time I forced into my focus to work harder on my arms and chest. After what felt like an hour of torture on my arms, and the gazes of the three stooges riding my ass, I was completely exhausted. I went to the men's locker room, grabbing my shower kit, and was off. After a 15-minute shower of me chilling in my towel, browsing memes on my phone, I heard the mumbling gossip of the big boys coming in the room. I ignored it as I was changing, getting ready to leave. While bending over, drying off my hair, I felt a yank of my towel below my waist, and my bare body exposed to the room around me. This is gonna get really dark now. My towel yanked away as I felt a familiar, greasy hand grabbing my rear. As I heard the horrid voice, now depraved and hungry,
Relax, my dear. Let me show you how easy your life can be now.
I froze. I don't know how to fight, but I can damn well throw a punch. And I threw a punch at him, square in his bulging red nose. I won't get too graphic about what happened next, but let's just say it was close. I thought they were either gonna kill me or something much, much worse. That was until I felt the weight lifted off of me, only to find Neckbeard Prime and his two friends getting their asses royally handed to them. Apparently 3 guys had heard me screaming and came in to help. Everything was a bit of a blur till the police came. Staff called the cops and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I quickly said yes and gave them my story. I didn't get a good look at the guys until I saw them walking out in cuffs, and holy hell! It was like ketchup was squirted all over their shirts, swollen eyes, broken noses. Neckbeard Prime was in a stretcher. Apparently one of the guys, who I would just like to say looked like John Henderson, went to town on him. Gave him a beating he'd never forget and a little extra just in case he tried. Right there, I felt a sinister glee in that. The aftermath. So I pressed charges. I gathered my belongings and saw an imprint of Neckbeard Prime's teeth on the bench as I walked out. The gym apologized on their behalf and offered me 6 months of free membership, as well as free confectionaries at their location. That seems a little counterintuitive in a gym, but sure. I went home, locked myself in my room, and cried myself to sleep that day. I had dreams and thoughts about what could have happened, about what almost happened. And it toyed with me again for a few days. But what got me the most was I could have ended up in his shoes. I could have been the one to assault someone if I didn't change. I thought about it for a couple of days, and now I'm resolved that I'm so grateful to be where I am today, and I will continue to strive to be something better than a degenerate. My hatred for neckbeards has tripled, and now if I get hit on, I shut that down quickly. But I still know where to stop myself. It is now July. Court isn't till next month, and I already got the word that Neckbeard Prime had to get fake teeth and has permanent knee damage. I look forward to seeing his face. I don't know about his buddies, other than that one tried to kill himself, saying he didn't belong in prison, apparently afraid of getting a taste of what they tried to dish out to me. Though I can't be certain about that. Either way, I imagine it's gonna be a scene from Shawshank Redemption, except Fish is gonna end up belly up by sunrise. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 49. Apologies for any hammering and drilling or whatever the hell they're doing out the back. Apparently 8 PM is a good time to start with that nonsense. Taken me an hour to record audio that it should have took 30 minutes. I literally just had a few stories to finish up in this video. Okay. I was tired as it is when I started. Okay, no grumbling. We're done now. I'm going to have to go find stories for Monday's video, but we're done with that now. And I'll need to rush to get this finished so I can get most of them wrapped up tonight so I can deal with the window guy tomorrow. Well, I say a guy, I don't know if they're sending a man or a woman, doesn't really matter. Whoever's coming to repair the windows. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.